Hey guys, Tracy here. Out riding today. It's 55 degrees, beautiful afternoon. Kind of felt motivated to vlog today, so I thought I'd talk to you about something that we don't seem to talk about a whole lot anymore as motovloggers, and that would be motorcycles. I know it's a novel idea, but work with me here. We're gonna see how this works. What I thought I'd talk about today would be the motorcycles that I have owned, why I bought them, what I liked about them, what I didn't like about them, why I don't have them anymore. This will probably be a two-part series because I've had a lot of motorcycles. So to start, we have to go back to about 1993. A guy I worked with had a red and white 1989, I believe it was, 250 Ninja. It made noises when he tried to ride it, and he just quit riding it basically and parked it. Well, I traded him a VCR that Billy bought for me and I paid him back. Don't ask me how that worked at the time, but it did. So I got this 250 Ninja and it ended up needing a new crankshaft. Well, at the time I wasn't really mechanically inclined as far as motorcycles were concerned, and I wasn't too interested in tearing into it. So I traded it into the dealership that I had given me an estimate on it, and I bought my first true motorcycle that I actually got to ride any appreciable amount of time. That was a 1990 FCR 400, black with gray stripes on it. Sweet, sweet motorcycle. I wish I still had that bike to this day. With the experience that I have now, that thing was fun beyond fun. It was a great little motorcycle. Revved to 14,000, I think, and it was just a blast. But love that bike. The reason I got rid of it was because at the time Billy had a 600 Ninja that he wrecked, and I didn't really like the idea of riding by myself at the time. I wanted somebody to ride with, and since my riding buddy had crashed his motorcycle and hadn't replaced it yet, I got kind of bored of riding by myself. I know it's hard to believe today, but I did. So I sold the FCR 400, and I didn't ride for probably 6-8 months, I guess. Maybe a little bit longer than that. After that bike, I bought, actually, this is going to sound funny, I bought Billy's 600 Ninja. And, yep, neutral still works. I bought Billy's 600 Ninja after he'd crashed it, and I fixed it, got it put back together again, mostly. And I rode it for a few months, and then a buddy of mine wanted it, so I sold it to him, and I was bikeless for about a week. I bought a 1990 FCR 600. It had the dual headlights, which was big to me at the time. The problem with it was I didn't have a whole lot of experience at that time. I just had new tires put on it, and I thought that I was going to go ride it like Wayne Rainey, you know, take corners, put my knee down, all that, when I really didn't have the skill or the experience to do that sort of thing. And I owned that bike for 2 weeks. I put probably 500 miles on it. I paid $3,200 for it, and I totaled it. I went to a corner too fast going onto the highway, and I absolutely destroyed that motorcycle. I bent the frame, I bent the subframe, I bent the wheels, I tore up the motor. There wasn't anything that was really salvageable of this bike except maybe the chain. And I ended up selling it for parts for $500. Miss that bike to this day. Beautiful motorcycle. After that, I didn't ride for a while. Are you going to turn or not? Nice signal, jackass. Ah, people. So, sold the FCR 600 for scrap. After that began my streak of Suzuki ownership, and this is where you will discover Billy came up with the idea of me being a Suzuki fanboy, and I've got my Suzuki blinders on, blah blah blah, whatever. I don't buy it, I'll let y'all be the judge. I bought a 1989 Suzuki GSXR 750. Had a custom paint job. It had been wrecked, I'm sure, at one point in the past. I know it had been, but whatever. It was fun. It got me back into riding. I rode that bike for about a year. I painted it bright yellow. Everybody asked me if it was a Ducati. No, it wasn't a Ducati. While I had that bike, a buddy of mine had a 92 GSXR 750, one of the pink and purple and black tiger stripe GSXRs. If you remember that era, then you remember that motorcycle. It was gaudy as hell, and I loved the hell out of it. It had a Yoshimura exhaust that had no pack in it. It was ridiculously loud. I took that thing to the drag strip every weekend. I got pretty fast with it. That thing was a lot of fun too, but finally I got rid of that. I don't even remember why I sold it now, to tell you the truth. Oh, I do too remember why. I wrecked it at the track doing the track day, and I didn't really feel like fixing it back up, and a buddy of mine wanted it to do track day, so I sold it to him for cheap. And then I was out of riding again for probably a year and a half, I guess. At that point I got another possum in the road. Why did the possum cross the road? To get to the stripe. I bought a 1991 GSXR 750. Yes, this is 3 GSXR 750s in a row. Now, this one had been wrecked also. Billy clued me into the guy that owned this thing through some connections he had. I bought this bike. I spent way too much time and money working on it, and it ended up being the bane of my existence. I learned a lot more about motorcycle working on that thing than I ever did any others, mainly because I shelled the motor twice, and I ended up having to rebuild the motor twice. Well, near the end of the history of this motorcycle, I bought my TL 1000R. The reason I bought the TLR was because I was kind of in the mood for a V-twin. Our buddy Kev had bought a TLS in the previous to that, and I really enjoyed it, so I decided I wanted a V-twin sport bike, but I didn't like the TLS. I wanted the TLR. So I found one. I drove to North Carolina for the second time to get a motorcycle. My third GSXR 750 came from there, but I digress. TLR. Bought the TLR. This takes us up to December of 2000 when I bought that bike. And it had been wrecked also. I had to replace the radiators on it. I had to replace some fairings. Nothing major, just little knick-knack stuff. Got that done. Got it put back together, and I've ridden the wheels off of that thing. I've since put a lot of time into that bike. I've added a lot of modifications to it that y'all have seen in my videos, I know. In April of 2003, I got the bug for another motorcycle. Still have my TLR at this point. The GSXR 750 from hell is gone. I took that thing apart and sold it on eBay a piece at a time. I'll tell you that story some other time, but I hated that bike at the end. So then we're up to the GSXR 1000. 03 model, new body style, had 4 miles on it when I took it from the dealership. I told myself if Suzuki ever made a GSXR 1000, I would buy it. Well, they made it, and I came to get it. And I rode that bike for 4 months. Had it for 4 months and put 2,600 miles on it. Rode it down to Dallas one weekend, put 400 miles on it. Just piddled around long enough to do a service on it, basically. In that 4 months, about a month after I bought the bike actually, I rode my TLR to Florida for a week. Put 3,300 miles on it in that trip, and absolutely fell in love with touring, sport touring. You know, getting on my bike and going someplace. The funny thing was, before I took that trip, it was a game time decision right up to even the day of the trip, whether I was going to ride the bike or take my truck, because I could make up my mind. In hindsight, I'm glad that I rode the bike, otherwise I may have never continued on the path that I'm on today. After I got home from that trip, I decided that I really liked the sport touring thing, and I needed a bike more appropriate for touring on. So I took my GSX-R 1000 down to the dealership that I bought it from, and I traded it in on a brand new Hayabusa that you all know and love. And I've had that bike now for 7 years. It has 70,000 miles on it. It's been to 49 states and 6 Canadian provinces. It's been pretty much everywhere. And one of these days, it'll get retired, but not anytime soon. I've had people ask me when I'm going to get rid of it. You know, I'm going to trade it off. I'm not going to trade it off. I couldn't get anything close to what I want out of it anyway, so I might as well hang on to it, right? So, in the time period of me doing 49 states on the Hayabusa, I decided I wanted to go to, hey, we're right back where we started from. How about that? I decided I wanted to go to Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. A lot of you know about Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. A lot of you know about me wanting to go to Prudhoe Bay, Alaska. And it's cold, desolate. It's basically a oil field town, but it's also at the end of the haul road on the Arctic Ocean at the very top of Alaska, inside the Arctic Circle. Well, I was pretty hell-bent determined that I was going to ride my Hayabusa up there. Cooler heads prevailed, smarter heads prevailed, talked me out of it, finally convinced me to talk myself out of it. And so at that point, I had to start looking for something else to go to Prudhoe Bay on. Well, a dual sport bike of some flavor obviously is preferable for that trip, since it's 450 miles each way of gravel road. So that's 900 miles of gravel. Not a good idea. It could be done on the Busa. The only problem I would have is if I got to Fairbanks, Alaska, and it were raining, it were snowing, it was gross and ugly, and the road was muck, I couldn't take the Busa up there. With an appropriate dual sport motorcycle, guess what? I could. Weather be damned. So, that is why I purchased my KLR 650. Because Billy and I are going to Prudhoe Bay, Alaska in approximately 6 months. Stay tuned. It'll be a blast. I'm looking forward to it. I've been dreaming of this trip for... I left my blinker on again. I hate it when I do that. I have been dreaming of this trip for about as long as I've had the Busa. It's kind of been on my mind, and then I got really serious about it over the last 3 or 4 years. So yeah, now we're going to Prudhoe Bay. Hey puppy! German Shepherd, I think. So, one of the questions that I have been asked a lot in regards to the Hayabusa is, why don't you have a motorcycle that is more appropriate for touring or doing distance on? Well, that's a little bit of a harder question to answer, and it's going to sound incredibly hard-headed because it is. I wanted to do all the states on my Hayabusa first, because I knew that it would be a lot harder to do it on the Hayabusa, and I'm kind of proud of that accomplishment. And besides, I knew once I did it on the Hayabusa, anything else would be like gravy. It would be so easy that it wasn't even funny, and then I could just enjoy it and, you know, go places. I wouldn't have to worry about taking state line pictures and standing on the side of the road and just all that stuff if I didn't want to. So now I don't have to do that anymore unless I just have the urge. Well, at this point, I'm sure a lot of you are noticing the fact that I've done this entire vlog and I'm not on any of the aforementioned motorcycles that I currently own. To that I would say, you're correct.